Captain Veltar stood frozen in front of the main screen on his ship's bridge. His blue-scaled hands shook as he stared at the data floating in the air before him. 3 days had passed since they scanned the human warship called USS Defiant. 3 days since his science team had broken into their computer systems. 3 days since everything he knew about the galaxy changed forever. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Cassina said quietly. Her voice trembled like a frightened child. The tall, thin alien woman had been his science officer for 12 years. He had never seen her this scared before. "Show me," Veltar replied. His own voice sounded strange to his ears. The hologram changed to show medical records from the human ship. Cassina pointed at the floating text with one of her 4 arms. "Look at their medical files. These humans undergo procedures that would kill any of us. They call it routine conditioning." Veltar read the glowing words. The humans injected chemicals into their bodies that would poison a Zephyrian in minutes. They replaced parts of their bones with metal. They put computer chips in their brains. The medical officer on the human ship wrote about these things like they were normal checkups. "This can't be right," Veltar whispered. "No civilized species would do this to themselves." "There's more," Cassina said. She changed the display again. "These are their combat drugs. Each human soldier carries enough stimulants to kill a full-grown Thronok beast. They inject these into themselves before battle." The list of chemicals made Veltar's stomach turn. Pain blockers that would shut down a normal being's nervous system. Adrenaline boosters that would make a heart explode. Rage inducers that would drive any sane creature mad. The humans carried all of this in small packets on their belts. "How are they still alive?" Veltar asked. "That's what scares me most," Cassina replied. "These aren't special soldiers. These are regular crew members. Every single human on that ship has these modifications. Every single one volunteers for this treatment." Veltar felt his legs go weak. He sat down heavily in his command chair. In all his years exploring space, he had never encountered anything like this. The humans looked so normal from the outside. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head. They seemed peaceful when they talked on the communication channels. But inside, they were something else entirely. "Show me their captain's file," he ordered. The hologram shifted to display the record of Commander Jake Murphy, the human in charge of the USS Defiant. Veltar read the first few lines and felt his blood freeze. Jake Murphy had survived 17 boarding actions. He had led ground attacks on 4 different worlds. 2 ships under his command had been completely destroyed, but somehow he lived through both disasters. 17 boarding actions, Veltar repeated slowly. "In our military, surviving 1 boarding action makes you a hero. This human has lived through 17. "It gets worse," Cassina said. She highlighted another section of the file. "Look at his psychological evaluation. The human doctors rate him as mentally stable and fit for command. This level of combat experience would drive any of our people insane, but they consider it normal." Veltar studied Jake Murphy's photo. The human looked ordinary. Brown hair, brown eyes, maybe 40 years old in human terms. He could have been any citizen from any peaceful world in the galaxy, but his service record read like a nightmare. "These aren't warriors forced into battle," Cassina continued. "Look at their recruitment files. Thousands of humans compete for the chance to serve. On these ships, they fight each other for the right to undergo these procedures. They beg to be sent into combat." The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. Veltar's crew had gathered around to listen. All of them stared at the human data with expressions of horror and disbelief. "Captain," said his communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Mordek, "if this is what their regular soldiers are like, what must their elite forces be?" Nobody answered. The question hung in the air like a poison cloud. Veltar thought about the human ship they had scanned. The USS Defiant looked like a standard military vessel from the outside. It carried normal weapons for its size. Its crew numbered only 200 beings. By galactic standards, it was barely worth noticing. But now he understood the truth. Every single human on that ship was a living weapon. Every one of them had been modified and trained and conditioned for war in ways that would destroy the mind of any civilized being. "There's something else," Kessina said quietly. "I found personal logs from their crew members. They write about their modifications like humans on other worlds write about getting new clothes. Listen to this entry from Lieutenant Beth Carter." A human voice filled the bridge, speaking in the common galactic language. "Got my new neural implants today. Reaction time improved by 30%. The bone density treatment is working great. 2. Survived 15 G-forces in the simulator without any problems. Can't wait to try the new fear suppression software. Maybe I'll finally get promoted to the assault team." The voice cut off. Veltar stared at the empty air where the hologram had been. The human woman had talked about removing her own fear like it was updating a computer program. She had discussed breaking her bones and rebuilding them stronger like it was routine maintenance. "What kind of species does this to itself?" Mordek whispered. "The kind that conquers galaxies," Veltar replied grimly. "The kind that turns every member of their race into a perfect killing machine. The kind that we should have left alone." Stood up from his chair and walked to the main view screen. Somewhere out there in the darkness, the human ship continued on its patrol. Jake Murphy and his crew of 200 living weapons flew through space, probably not even knowing they had been scanned. They went about their daily routines, completely unaware that they had just shattered everything the Zephyrian Coalition believed about civilization and warfare. "Sir," Kessina said behind him, "what do we do with this information?" Veltar closed his eyes. That was the question that would haunt him for the rest of his life. What did they do now that they knew the truth about humanity? Dr. Kessina worked alone in the data analysis chamber deep inside the Harmony's edge. The room was dark except for the blue glow of dozens of holographic displays floating around her. She had been here for 6 hours, digging deeper into the human military database they had stolen. What she found made her wish she had never learned to read. She pulled up another file from the human ship's computer. This one was labeled Historical Battle Records, Luna Station Siege. The file was massive, containing thousands of pages of reports, videos, and personal accounts. Kessina began to read, and within minutes she understood why the humans were so different from every other species in the galaxy. The Battle of Luna Station had happened 12 years ago. A massive pirate fleet had attacked a human mining station on the edge of their territory. The station had only 500 defenders against 3,000 pirates with superior weapons and ships. By all logical calculations, the humans should have surrendered within days. Instead, they held out for 6 months. Kessina read report after report of impossible human endurance. When their food ran out, they ate recycled protein paste made from waste materials. When their water recyclers broke down, they drank their own processed urine. When the air scrubbers failed, they took turns breathing from emergency tanks while others worked in vacuum suits to make repairs. But the humans didn't just survive. They fought back. The station commander, Colonel Patricia Wells, had organized the defense with cold military precision. She divided her people into shifts, so someone was always awake and fighting. She rationed ammunition by making every shot count. When pirates tried to board the station, she flooded entire sections with poisonous gas, killing attackers and defenders alike. Kessina found video recordings of the final battle. She watched in horror as human defenders, starved and exhausted, continued fighting even when pieces of the station exploded around them. Some humans kept shooting even after being badly wounded. Others dragged themselves through damaged corridors to bring ammunition to their comrades. The siege ended when Colonel Wells made a decision that no civilized being would ever consider. She ordered her engineers to overload the station's fusion reactor. The explosion killed everyone on Luna Station, but it also destroyed half the pirate fleet. The remaining pirates fled in terror, spreading stories about the humans who would rather die than surrender. Kessina leaned back in her chair, feeling sick. The humans had turned their own deaths into a weapon. They had calculated exactly how many of their own people they were willing to sacrifice to win the battle, and they called this heroic. She opened another file, hoping to find something less disturbing. Instead, she discovered human training manuals for something called asymmetric warfare. The documents explained how humans fought enemies with better technology and greater numbers, Cassina read through tactics that made her scales crawl with disgust. The humans taught their soldiers to use civilian populations as spy networks. They showed how to turn ordinary tools into deadly weapons. They explained how to make enemies paranoid by striking at random times and places. Most terrifying of all, they had detailed plans for destroying entire planets if they couldn't defend them. One manual section was titled Psychological Warfare Techniques. It contained instructions for breaking enemy morale through fear and confusion. The humans had studied the minds of dozens of alien species, learning their deepest fears and cultural taboos. They used this knowledge to create terror weapons specifically designed for each race. Cassina found recordings of human military classes. In one video, a human instructor named Professor Alan Brooks calmly explained how to turn a merchant ship into a guided missile. In another, Major Linda Gray demonstrated 17 different ways to kill someone with common household items. The Wang students took notes like they were learning to cook or paint pictures. But the most disturbing file was labeled Acceptable Losses Calculation Matrix. Cassina opened it and discovered a computer program that helped human commanders decide how many of their own soldiers they could sacrifice to achieve different objectives. The program had sliders for variables like strategic importance, enemy strength, and available replacement personnel. She tested the program with fictional scenarios and watched in horror as it coldly calculated death tolls. To capture an enemy supply depot, the program suggested sacrificing up to 40% of the attacking force. To destroy an enemy command center, it recommended losses of up to 70% were acceptable. For critical objectives, the program stated that 100% casualties were justified if necessary. Cassina found personal logs from Lieutenant Beth Carter, the same human woman they had heard earlier. Her most recent entries revealed the human mindset in terrifying detail. Beth wrote about volunteering for experimental surgical procedures that had a 20% chance of killing her. She described the modifications to her body like a mechanic discussing upgrades to a vehicle. Neural implant surgery went well, one entry read. Reaction time improved by 43%. Some memory loss, but that's normal according to the doctors. The new bone reinforcement is working great. Survived 22 G-forces in the centrifuge today. Still hoping to qualify for the drop trooper program. Competition is fierce, but I think my new fear suppression protocols give me an edge. Beth Carter wasn't a desperate criminal or a brainwashed slave. She was a volunteer who competed with thousands of other humans for the chance to become a living weapon. Her log entries showed genuine excitement about each new modification to her mind and body. Cassina discovered that humans had been studying warfare for their entire recorded history. While other species had developed art, music, and literature, humans had perfected the science of killing. They had fought countless wars on their home planet before reaching space. They had learned from every defeat and celebrated every victory. Database contained files on human military academies, where children as young as 16 studied battle tactics. These schools didn't just teach strategy and weapons use. They taught students how to think like warriors, how to make life and death decisions without hesitation, and how to accept that death was always a possibility. Most alien species saw warfare as a last resort, something to be avoided at all costs. Humans saw it as an inevitable part of existence. They prepared for war even during times of peace. They trained their children to be soldiers before they were adults. They built their entire society around the assumption that conflict would always come. Cassina turned off the displays and sat in darkness. She had spent her life studying alien cultures, trying to understand how different species thought and lived. But humans were unlike anything she had ever encountered. They weren't just another spacefaring race. They were a civilization that had turned violence into an art form and death into a tool of policy. Somewhere in the darkness above her, Captain Veltar was probably still struggling with the same terrible knowledge. They had scanned what they thought was a simple patrol ship and discovered something that would give her nightmares for the rest of her life. The humans weren't coming to explore the galaxy. They were coming to conquer it. And they had been preparing for that conquest since before they left their homeworld. The communication array on the Harmony's edge suddenly came alive with an incoming transmission. Communications Officer Mordek jumped in his seat as the alarm chimed through the bridge. He had been monitoring space traffic for hours, hoping to find normal cargo ships or peaceful exploration vessels. Instead, he intercepted something that made his blood run cold. Captain Veltar to the bridge immediately. He called over the ship's internal communication system. His voice cracked with fear. Veltar arrived within minutes, still carrying the datapad he had been studying in his quarters. "What is it, Mordek?" "Sir, we intercepted a transmission between the human warship and something called Earth Strategic Command. I thought it would be routine logistics, but..." Mordek's hand shook as he activated the recording. "You need to hear this." The bridge speakers filled with human voices speaking in their own language. The ship's computer quickly translated the words into Zephyrian. What they heard made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing and listen in stunned silence. The first voice belonged to Colonel Rick Hayes, speaking from somewhere on the human homeworld. His tone was calm and professional, like someone discussing the weather. "USS Defiant, this is Strategic Command. We have updates to your tactical protocols based on recent encounters with alien species." Commander Jake Murphy's voice responded from their target ship. "Understood, Command. Ready to receive updates. We've identified 14 distinct alien military doctrines in your sector," Colonel Hayes continued. "Each species has predictable weaknesses we can exploit. The Thronak rely too heavily on shield technology. The Vorthan use formations that leave flanks exposed. The Meridian Council species avoid close combat entirely." Veltar felt his heart skip a beat. The humans had been studying every species they encountered, learning how to fight them. They weren't just exploring space, they were gathering intelligence for future wars. Colonel Hayes continued his briefing. "New tactical data has been uploaded to your combat computers. Priority targets, weak points, and recommended engagement strategies for each known species. Special attention to psychological warfare tactics for races with hive mind structures." "Received and confirmed," Jake Murphy replied. "What about the species we haven't encountered yet?" "Protocol 7 remains in effect for unknown contacts. Gather intelligence first, identify weaknesses, develop countermeasures. If they prove hostile, implement standard first contact procedures." Mordek paused the recording and looked at his captain. "Sir, what are standard first contact procedures?" Veltar didn't answer. He was afraid to know. The recording continued. Colonel Hayes began discussing something that made the Zephyrians realize how little they understood about human military thinking. "Strategic Command has approved modifications to fleet doctrine based on your sector reports. We're implementing new protocols for fighting technologically superior enemies." "The Zephyrian vessels you observed last month?" Jake Murphy asked. "Among others. We've identified 17 species with technology advantages over our current capabilities. Protocol 7 addresses these threats through alternative approaches." Dr. Kesaina's voice came over the bridge communication system. She had been listening from her laboratory below. "Captain, I'm accessing their military database in real time. Protocol 7 is terrifying." "What does it say?" Veltar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know. "It's a battle plan for fighting enemies with superior technology and numbers. The humans will sacrifice entire fleets to gather intelligence. They'll use civilian populations as spy networks. They'll convert any available resources into weapons, including their own ships and colonies." On the recording, Colonel Hayes was still talking. "Dr. Tony Martinez has completed his analysis of galactic military capabilities. His report confirms that humans currently rank in the bottom third for raw firepower and technology. However, our adaptive capabilities and tactical flexibility give us significant advantages." Another human voice joined the conversation. This was Dr. Tony Martinez himself, speaking from what sounded like a large room with multiple people. "Colonel Hayes, Dr. Martinez here. I want to emphasize that our strategy doesn't rely on matching enemy capabilities. We win by being unpredictable, adaptable, and willing to accept losses that other species find unacceptable." Veltar watched his crew's faces grow pale as they listened. The humans weren't trying to build bigger guns or stronger shields. They were planning to win through sheer ruthlessness and willingness to sacrifice anything for victory. Dr. Martinez continued his briefing. We've been preparing for galactic-scale warfare since before we achieved faster-than-light travel. Every CO exploration mission doubles as intelligence gathering. Every trade agreement includes military assessment. Every diplomatic contact results in tactical analysis. How long have they been doing this? Whispered Ensign Telmora from the navigation station. Every first contact situation has been a military operation disguised as peaceful exploration, Dr. Martinez explained as if answering her question. We've studied the social structures, military capabilities, and psychological profiles of 43 different species. We have detailed plans for fighting each one. The recording revealed something even more disturbing. Colonel Hayes began discussing specific alien species by name, including several that the Zephyrians thought were extinct. The Kethmori resistance collapsed faster than projected. Their reliance on ritual combat made them vulnerable to asymmetric tactics. The Felnari surrendered after we demonstrated willingness to target civilian infrastructure. The Kulati simply disappeared after 3 of their core worlds went silent. Veltar realized with growing horror that these weren't extinct species. They were species that had been eliminated by human military action. The humans had been quietly fighting and destroying entire civilizations while maintaining the pretense of peaceful exploration. Sir, Mordek said quietly, they're talking about us now. On the recording, Dr. Martinez was discussing Zephyrian military capabilities. The coalition forces rely heavily on shields and energy weapons. Their ships are fast but lightly armored. Most importantly, their culture values individual life too highly to accept significant casualties. Standard attrition tactics should be effective. Recommended approach if hostilities develop? Jake Murphy asked. Hit and run attacks on supply lines. Force them to spread their fleet thin, protecting civilian targets. Their commanders will hesitate to accept losses, giving us tactical advantages despite their superior technology. The transmission ended with Colonel Hayes providing final instructions. Continue standard patrol operations, Commander Murphy. Maintain peaceful appearances with all alien contacts. Remember, we're not ready for open warfare yet. But when the time comes, we'll be prepared. The bridge fell silent as the recording stopped. Veltar stared at the communication console, trying to process what they had just heard. The humans had been studying every species in the galaxy, preparing detailed battle plans and quietly eliminating potential threats. They appeared peaceful because they weren't ready to reveal their true intentions yet. Captain, Dr. Kessina's voice came through the speakers again. There's more. I found references to something called the Colonial Defense Grid. The humans have been building military installations throughout the galaxy for decades. Hidden bases, supply depots, automated defense systems. They're not just preparing for war. They're already positioned for it. Veltar closed his eyes and tried to think. The Zephyrian coalition had welcomed humans as peaceful neighbors. They had shared technology, opened trade routes, and established diplomatic relations, all while the humans were secretly preparing to destroy them. Sir, what do we do? Mordek asked. That was the question that would determine the fate of every species in the galaxy. What did they do now that they knew humanity's peaceful facade was hiding the most dangerous military machine the galaxy had ever seen? Navigation Officer Telmora stared at her sensor display in disbelief. The coordinates she had found in the human ship's navigation computer led to what should have been empty space in the outer rim territories. Instead, her sensors were detecting something that made no sense at all. Captain Veltar, she called across the bridge. You need to see this immediately. Veltar hurried to her station, followed by Dr. Kessina, who had come up from her laboratory. The 3 of them looked at Telmora's screen, trying to understand what they were seeing. These readings can't be right, Veltar said slowly. Show me again. Telmora activated the deep space scanners and focused them on a seemingly empty asteroid field. At first, nothing appeared unusual. Rocks floating in space just like thousands of other dead systems throughout the galaxy. But when she switched to advanced detection modes, the truth became visible. Hidden among the asteroids were dozens of artificial structures, weapon platforms, supply depots, docking facilities large enough for entire fleets, and all of them were completely invisible to normal sensors. How many? Veltar asked in a whisper. 47 installations in this system alone, Telmora replied. Her voice shook as she spoke. Captain, according to the navigation data from the human ship, there are coordinates for over 300 similar locations throughout the galaxy. Dr. Kessina pulled up her datapad and began cross-referencing the coordinates with known star maps. Within minutes, she had confirmation of their worst fears. These locations are positioned at strategic points along every major trade route and near every inhabited system. The humans have been building a hidden military network for decades. Veltar ordered his ship to approach one of the installations slowly. As they got closer, their sensors revealed more details that made the situation even more terrifying. The facility was completely automated. No life signs, no crew quarters, no environmental systems for living beings. Just weapons, fuel, and automated manufacturing equipment. It's a sleeper depot, Dr. Kessina said after studying the scans. Designed to activate remotely when needed. Look at this. She highlighted sections of the installation on her display. Missile production lines, automated repair bays, and communication arrays connected to every other facility in the network. Telmora discovered something even more disturbing. Captain, I'm detecting quantum communication transmitters. These installations can communicate instantly across the entire galaxy. If one activates, they all activate simultaneously. The bridge crew worked in stunned silence as they cataloged the contents of the hidden base. Weapon systems powerful enough to destroy capital ships. Manufacturing facilities that could build new weapons from raw materials found in the asteroid field. Most terrifying of all, they found storage bays containing what appeared to be complete unmanned warships, folded and compressed for easy storage. How many ships? Veltar asked, though he dreaded the answer. Each facility contains approximately 50 unmanned vessels, Telmora reported. If there are really 300 installations like this one throughout the galaxy. She stopped, calculating, and just stared at her captain. Veltar did the math himself. 15,000 hidden warships, scattered across the galaxy, all waiting for a single command to activate. The entire Zephyrian fleet consisted of less than 2,000 ships, and most of those were exploration vessels and cargo haulers. Dr. Kessina accessed the facility's computer systems, using the codes they had stolen from the USS Defiant. What she found in the installation's database made her wish she had never learned to read human languages. Listen to this, she said, playing back a recorded briefing. A human woman's voice filled the bridge, speaking with calm authority. This is Major Lisa Brooks, Colonial Defense Command. Final briefing for Sleeper Depot Network activation protocols. In the event of existential threat to human civilization, all installations will receive simultaneous activation orders via quantum communication array. The recording continued with details that chilled every alien on the bridge. Each depot contains sufficient firepower to sterilize one planetary system. Network-wide activation provides capability to render the entire galaxy uninhabitable within 72 hours of activation order. Major Brooks described the network's purpose with terrifying clarity. Primary mission is species survival through mutual destruction doctrine. If humanity cannot survive, we ensure no potential threat species survives either. All installations are programmed with target lists including every known intelligent species and their homeworlds. The recording ended with instructions that made Veltar's blood freeze. Activation requires confirmation from Earth Command or automatic trigger if communication with Earth is lost for more than 30 days. In the event of Earth's destruction, the network assumes hostile action and begins galaxy-wide sterilization protocol immediately. They've turned the entire galaxy into a weapon, Veltar said quietly. If anyone destroys Earth, these installations will kill every living thing in space. Telmora made another discovery that added to their growing horror. Captain, look at the manufacturing capabilities. These installations aren't just storing weapons. They're building new ones constantly. The network grows stronger every day. Dr. Kessina found technical specifications for the unmanned warships stored in the depot. Each vessel was designed for one purpose only: complete destruction of enemy targets. No crew quarters, no life support, no defensive systems. Just engines, weapons, and targeting computers programmed with the locations of every inhabited world in the galaxy. "These ships are built to die," she said, studying the technical details. "They're guided missiles disguised as warships. Each one carries enough explosive power to crack a planet's crust." The bridge sensors detected movement within the installation. Automated systems were responding to their presence, preparing defenses in case the unknown alien vessel proved hostile. Veltar ordered an immediate retreat before the depot's weapon systems fully activated. As the Harmony's Edge pulled away from the hidden installation, the crew tried to process what they had discovered. The humans hadn't just been preparing for Galactic War. They had already positioned themselves to win that war through the ultimate threat. If they couldn't have the galaxy, no one could. "How long have they been building this network?" Mordek asked from his communication station. Dr. Cassina checked the installation's construction logs. The oldest facilities date back 40 years. They started building this network before most species even knew humans existed. Veltar realized the full scope of human planning. While other species had been exploring, trading, and building peaceful civilizations, humans had been secretly preparing for the complete destruction of galactic civilization. They had built a weapon that could end all life in space, and they had positioned it as the ultimate guarantee of their own survival. "Sir," Telmora said quietly, "the USS Defiant has changed course. They're heading directly toward our position." Veltar looked at his navigation display and felt his heart sink. The human warship was 6 hours away and closing fast. Somehow, Commander Jake Murphy and his crew knew that their secrets had been discovered. They were coming to deal with the aliens who had learned too much about humanity's true nature. The Zephyrians had perhaps 6 hours to decide what to do with the most dangerous information in galactic history. They knew about the Sleeper Depot network. They knew about humanity's hidden military capabilities. They knew that every human ship in space was connected to a system designed to kill every living thing in the galaxy. And now the humans knew that they knew. Captain Veltar stood alone in his private quarters, staring at the emergency communication device that could reach Zephyrian High Command instantly. His 4 hands trembled as he held the small device that would change the fate of every living being in the galaxy. One message to his superiors would set in motion events that could never be stopped. The door chimed softly. "Enter," he said without turning around. Dr. Cassina walked into the room carrying a datapad filled with her final analysis. Her usually calm demeanor had been replaced by the hollow look of someone who had seen too much. "Captain, I've completed my assessment of the human threat level." "Tell me," Veltar replied, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear her conclusions. "If we report this to the Galactic Council, they will demand immediate military action against humanity. The evidence is too compelling to ignore. But if we attack the humans—" She paused, unable to finish the sentence. "The sleeper network activates," Veltar completed for her. "Every installation in the galaxy begins destroying inhabited worlds. How many would die?" Cassina consulted her datapad with shaking hands. "Conservative estimate, 47 billion beings across 312 known worlds. That's just the immediate casualties. The automated weapons would continue hunting survivors for years." Veltar finally turned to face his science. "Officer, and if we do nothing, the humans continue building their hidden network. In 10 years, maybe 20, they reveal their true strength and demand surrender from every species in the galaxy. We become slaves to a race that has prepared for our conquest since before they left their homeworld." The communication device felt heavier in Veltar's hands. Either choice led to the destruction of galactic civilization as they knew it. Report the humans and trigger an apocalypse. Stay silent and watch freedom die slowly. "There's something else," Cassina said quietly. "I intercepted another transmission from the approaching human ship. Commander Jake Murphy is preparing what they call first contact protocols. Show me." Cassina activated a small holographic display. The image showed the bridge of the USS Defiant, where Commander Jake Murphy stood calmly giving orders to his crew. The humans looked relaxed, almost friendly, as they prepared to meet the Zephyrian ship. Weapon systems to standby mode, Murphy instructed his tactical officer. But keep targeting solutions updated in real time. Navigation, plot escape routes, to 3 different jump points. Communications, prepare the standard first contact package. Lieutenant Beth Carter, the same human woman whose personal logs had revealed so much about human modifications, approached her captain with a data pad. Sir, psychological profile on Zephyrian species complete. Recommended approach is peaceful but firm. They respond well to demonstrations of strength but avoid direct confrontation when possible. Murphy nodded and reviewed the information. Any specific weaknesses we should be aware of? Their culture values individual life highly, sir. They'll avoid actions that could result in significant casualties. Their military doctrine prioritizes shields and mobility over armor and firepower. Most importantly, they trust other species to act rationally. Perfect, Murphy replied with a smile that never reached his eyes. That last point is exactly what we need. Begin standard approach patterns. Let them think this is a normal diplomatic encounter. The recording continued as the human crew prepared for contact. Veltar watched in fascination as they went through procedures that looked identical to peaceful first contact protocols used by every civilized species. But now he understood the truth. Every movement, every word, every gesture was calculated to gather intelligence while presenting a false image of humanity's intentions. Sir, came the voice of Ensign Mordek over the communication system. The human ship is requesting permission to approach for peaceful dialogue. Veltar looked at Kessiina, then at the emergency communication device in his hands. The moment of decision had arrived. In a few minutes he would be face-to-face with Commander Jake Murphy, a human who had survived 17 boarding actions and commanded a ship full of living weapons. They would smile, exchange pleasantries, and discuss cooperation between their species. All while both sides knew that one wrong word could trigger the extinction of galactic civilization. Captain, Kessiina said softly, whatever you decide, remember that we're not just choosing for ourselves. We're choosing for every species that doesn't know what humanity really is. Veltar walked to his viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among those points of light were hundreds of human sleeper depots, waiting for the signal to begin their work of destruction. Somewhere else were peaceful worlds full of beings who had never heard of humans and had no idea that their fate was being decided by a frightened Zephyrian captain. Response from the Zephyrian vessel, came a report from the human ship. They're agreeing to peaceful contact. Commander Murphy's voice carried clearly through the intercepted transmission. Excellent. Begin approach pattern Delta. Remember, they've probably been monitoring our communications, so assume they know more about us than a normal first contact situation. Be prepared for anything. The human crew acknowledged their orders with the calm efficiency of trained killers preparing for battle. But their weapons remained powered down, their shields stayed inactive, and their approach pattern looked exactly like standard diplomatic procedure. Veltar made his decision. He walked to his communication console and opened a channel to the bridge. This is the captain. We will proceed with first contact protocols. All crew maintain normal procedures. Do not reveal what we have learned about human capabilities. He turned off the emergency communication device without sending any message to Zephyrian High Command. The secret of humanity's true nature would remain hidden, at least for now. Sir, Kessiina asked, are you sure about this? No, Veltar replied honestly. But I'm sure about what happens if we expose them. Maybe there's another way. Maybe we can find a solution that doesn't end with everyone dead. The USS Defiant appeared on their main viewer, looking exactly like a peaceful exploration vessel. Commander Jake Murphy's image filled the communication screen moments later, his face showing the warm smile of a diplomat meeting new friends. Greetings, Murphy said in perfect Zephyrian language. I'm Commander Jake Murphy of the United Earthship Defiant. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I look forward to discussing cooperation between our peoples. Veltar looked into the eyes of the most dangerous being he had ever encountered and smiled back. Welcome, Commander Murphy. I'm Captain Veltar of the Zephyrian vessel Harmony's Edge. We're always pleased to meet peaceful explorers. Both captains knew the other was lying. Both understood that this conversation would determine whether galactic civilization survived or died in nuclear fire, and both smiled as if they were simply neighbors meeting for the first time. The real first contact between humanity and the galaxy had begun, not with the exchange of gifts or scientific knowledge, but with a careful dance between predator and prey, where neither side could afford to reveal what they really knew about the other. In the end, Veltar realized, humanity had already won. The mere existence of their hidden weapons network meant that every future interaction would be shaped by the threat of mutual destruction. The humans didn't need to conquer the galaxy through force. They just needed everyone else to know that. They could destroy it if they chose to. The age of peaceful galactic civilization was over. The age of humanity had begun.